Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Well, welcome again, Ahmadiyya Fact Check blog channel. Today I have my brother with me, Umar Khan. He's also from California. He's also an ex-Ahmadi and a Muslim today. Alhamdulillah. Today we're going to be talking specifically on chapter 43, verse 61. Assalamu alaikum, brother Umar. How's it going?
Wa alaikum salam, brother Bashir. How you doing, bro? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. You recently made a video on Zaytun FM in English, and it caused one of my critics to just blow a gasket. You know, he's all upset. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and chapter 43, verse 61. We're going to be talking about the subject matter there. We're going to talk about chapter 54, verse 1, because the hour is also mentioned with the same word in that verse, and some Iggalti ka azala and some other things. So we're just going to start off. I'm going to read chapter 43, verse 61. I haven't read it in a long time. I don't have it off of memory, too. So let me just put on my glasses here, and I'm going to just read this off of alquran.com. So, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa innahu la'al isa ati falatum tarun nabiha wa tabi'un hada siratal mustaqim. So that is the verse in question. Brother Umar, I'm going to just go straight to the questioning here. Did you say that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad never wrote a commentary on this verse?
Well, before I answer that question, brother Bashir, not to go into too much of a dialogue here with you, I want to give you a good point of reference. Surah Al-Zukhruf, or the gold ornaments, is a Makki surah. So it was during the time frame when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Mecca. Now, the verse that you just recited in the Muslim Quran, it's verse 61. In an Ahmadi Quran, it's verse 62. وَإِنَّهُ لَعِلْمٌ لِلسَّاعَةِ فَلَا تَمْتَرُونَ بِهَا وَاتَّبِعُونِ هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. But verily, now I'll go by the Ahmadi translation from the short commentary Ahmadi Quran that I have, and you can see I have a lot of bookmarks, just showing it online. But verily he was a sign of the hour, so entertain no doubt about it, but follow me, this is the right path. This verse that Ahmadis have wrongfully either translated in past tense, or as Mirza Ghulam Ahmad refers to it as the Quran, and Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud also in his Tafsir al-Saghir refers to it as meaning the Quran, but then 2 verses later, Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud acknowledges that it does these verses are referring to the second coming of Jesus. And then Mirza Tahir Ahmad also believes that it's a person that's going to bring a revolutionary sign of the time, so to speak. Mir Muhammad Ishaq translates it as Hazrat Isa, coming back in the second coming. Ghulam, the translation that I'm reading right now is Malik Ghulam Farid. This is the translation that kind of has been expounded upon from Maulvi Sherali. Now, to answer your question directly, the reason why I made that video, and to which you got a reply from someone near and dear to you, I also read on Twitter from someone that someone was complaining that I think it was Khurram Shah, who was complaining that I had lied and said that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad did not do a commentary. That is no lie. First and foremost, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, with his own hand, never penned a Tafsir al-Quran. Never, ever. The Tafsir al-Quran we have compiled compiled today was compiled by Ahmadi Murabbis, Ahmadi scholars, Ahmadi elders. It was compiled. There's two versions. One is the older edition, and then there's a newer edition, I think, of 7 or 8 volumes. However, neither the old nor the new edition is a complete tafsir al-Quran. It's bits and pieces from surahs here and there, several surahs being missed. So I did not say that Mirza Ghulam did not write a commentary. I said this commentary was compiled. So clarification there for the one that needs the clarification.
Right. So he's really confused, and then he had a Twitter spat with some guy. He's this week where he's misunderstanding everyone. But this is all of these guys' problems. They're wearing a Qadiani lens, so they see everything just differently, you know. And they see things that we might write or our scholars write, and they twist them and take them out of context because of the hate that's in their heart. You see what I mean? So so back to chapter 43.
Oh, most definitely, and it's in yeah. You know, most definitely, people have a tendency to I'm sure, Brother Bashir, you've been confronted with it, that people are very judgmental. They'll jump on you and say, hey, how the hell did you leave, you know, Qadianiyat or Ahmadiyat? Why did you leave? I went through the same thing. I mean, I had argument after argument with my own family members, my own dad, my aunts and my uncles, you know, all telling me that, you know, hell is going to be unleashed upon me. And quite honestly, all I did was get on my knees and in my prayer begging Allah for guidance.
Right. And you're coming in kind of muffled.
To your comment, getting back to Surah Al-Zukhruf, the meat and potatoes of the. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you're coming in kind of muffled. Yeah. So see if you can and come right back.
Hold on here. Okay.
Yeah. See if you can step out and come right back, and I'll give some commentary in the meantime. So Keekee, listen up. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad waited till 1902 to officially comment on 4361. That's 11 and a half years after he claimed to be the Messiah. How was he silent? So in 1902, in Ijazi Ahmadi, he makes the first comment. In that comment, he says, that's for that time only, and it's a punishment for the Jews, and et cetera. So, okay, and he's back. All right, brother, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, loud and clear? All right,
yeah,
so, you know, as I was saying, I think, you know, you have been confronted with this same challenge by your family members. I also have been challenged with it. You know, people are judgmental. They think that we're bent on, you know, deviating from Qadianiyat or Ahmadiyat and reverting to for our own ill reasons. I mean, like, some shaitan jumped on our shoulders and was directing us otherwise. And it's this sort. It's when you beg for guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one that guides you. He is the one that opens your eyes Quranically. Okay, so referring back to Surah Al-Zukhruf, chapter 43, again, I'm going to start at the very beginning. This is a Makki surah. So it's being addressed, these verses are being addressed to the idolaters. And the meat and potatoes of the verses that are just before the verse under discussion is, you know, it starts at verse 58 in the Ahmadi Quran, and the Arabic is أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولما ضرب ابن مريم مثلا إذا قومك منه يصدون. And when the son of Mary, the English translation is, and when the son of Mary is mentioned as an example, lo, thy people raise a clamor thereat. So these verses aren't being recited. There might be some bystanding Christians and Jews, but the main audience was the mushrikeen. And so when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started mentioning Hazrat Isa in the previous verses, they kind of get bent out of shape, and they say, well, wait a minute, he's not better than our God. Our gods are better than him. So why do you
Right.
keep mentioning? And then the verses come on in, and this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is instructing his messenger. And from authentic ahadith, we know that وَإِنَّهُ لَإِلْمُ لِسَاعَةِ فَلَا تَمْتَرُونَ بِهَا وَاتَّبِعُونَ هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ indicates that Jesus is a sign of the time. Now, if your brother Khurram Shah, if it is the same Khurram Shah that tweeted this message, what he failed to realize is, for timekeeping measures, I only showed 2 pages, 5 years. I think on the tweet he had said that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad wrote 7 pages.
Right.
There is no, brother, believe me, there is no 7 pages
Yeah.
in the Tafsir al-Quran. It starts at page 191. It's a half page there. You got full page 192, 193, 194, 195, and maybe a third of a page on 196. So all put together, it's 5 pages. But remember,
from 3 different books, from 3 different references.
exactly. The first reference is from Al-Badr from 1902, November 14th, 1902. The second reference is from the book Al-Haq, which is from Ruhani Khazain, volume 4, pages, I believe, I can look it up right here.
And that was published in 1905, right? So we don't even know. Yeah.
Now, that's Al-Haq, is the Al-Haq Mubasa Delhi, which is the debate that took place in Delhi. This is a book, Al-Haq was written in 1905. You are correct. But it's not in sequential order, because the Ahmadis kind of go back and say, hey, this was a debate that took place in 1891, so here's its placement in the Ruhani Khazain chastisement. Now, Khurram, I had showed on the video, Chunache Tafsir Ma'lum. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad refers to a Tafsir al-Ma'lum, which is also known in the Muslim world as Tafsir al-Baghwi. He mentions this on not one page, but page 194 as well. So it's kind of, even though it comes from 3 different books, the commentary that the Ahmadi elders put together and compiled and called Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's tafsir, it comes from 3 different books. But the gist, the story that, or the meaning, the translation that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad has given, okay, it refers to the Jews. It refers to the punishment of the Jews because their denial of Hazrat Isa. It also means the Quran, yada, yada, yada. But what I was trying to show was the academic dishonesty that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad did. He so dishonestly refers to someone else's tafsir, Tafsir al-Ma'lum, which is by also known as Tafsir al-Baghwi, on pages 219 and 220 of that tafsir. This verse has 8, or actually 9 possible references.
Right.
8 of the 9 refer to Hazrat Isa's second coming, and 1, Al-Hasan, indicates that this means the Quran. So why not mention, just like he did with, now we all know, Brother Bashir, you and I both know, these Qadianis, these Ahmadis aren't going to fool us. Right. He did the same thing in the book Raze Hakikat, and I think it's Ruhani Khazain book 14, where he refers to Kamaluddin at-Tamamun Nema, and he references the story of Yuz Asif. He says, yeah, if you want to read that story, go bother and read those books. But he doesn't detail the actual, subject matter in that book. And the same deceit was applied here. He doesn't give all the other 8 possible references to Hazrat Isa's second coming. He only picked 1.
Right. And to be honest, the ways Muslim scholars, the way it works is that verse means the second coming of Isa alayhi salam. However, it can also mean other things, but that can't negate the first meaning. Similarly,
Exactly.
Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the last of the prophets, but it can also be translated as the best of the prophets, but that can never delete the first meaning. These are additions of what it also could mean. So this is another case of exactly that.
Exactly, 100%. It's um, it's kind of ironic though. I want to point out something. So in Tafsir al-Ma'lum or Tafsir al-Baghawi, and I'll say Tafsir al-Baghawi because most people have iPhones and Samsungs, and they can download certain Quranic apps. And Tafsir al-Baghawi, albeit an Arabic tafsir, is available. So no, it's not something that you have to go to archive.com and download. You possibly have it on your phone. I have it on my phone right now. So,
Right.
Mirza Ghulam Ahmad dishonestly does not state the other 8 references. He only picks one. But isn't it amazing that 8 plus 1 equals 9? That's just about 11%.
Right.
The reference to the Quran is approximately 11%. And in my video, I said 87 to 87.5 to 90. So, okay, let's call it to the second coming of Hazrat Isa. 10% only refer to it as meaning the Quran. And that's exactly probably the population out there in the world today, of the Muslim population, that some people believe that Hazrat Isa is coming, and some people, 90% of Muslims believe Hazrat Isa is coming, and 10% of them, maybe less than 10%, don't believe. That's their prerogative, though. I'm not judgmental on them. I'm judgmental on the people who represent someone who hijacked the seat and said, "I'm the man. I'm coming. I came in his presence."
Right.
We'll continue on. I'm sorry to make it long, but keep going.
No, it's totally okay. It's totally okay. So there's one more piece of academic dishonesty in Tasfiri Bugvi. I think that's the name. He also writes that Isa hasn't died yet, and the scholar believes in the second coming of Isa. So
100%.
Just like all of them did. So Keekee had the same issue. He kept quoting Shah Waliullah on this and that and this and that, but he wouldn't, in the same book that he's quoting, Shah Waliullah believes in the substitution theory. Shah Waliullah believes that Isa hasn't died yet. Shah Waliullah agrees with us on this verse. All you got to do is look it up. So the academic dishonesty continues. These guys can't help it, brother. They just can't help it. It's not their fault. They've been led astray by these Ahmadi Murabbis who needed a job, and the Mirza family. So, okay, we talked about the subject matter. We clarified the whole situation. Now, let's talk about that Arabic word in question here. What's the Arabic word? Do you have it handy? It's
it's sa.
Sa.
Yeah, it's spelt Alif, Lam, Sin, Alif, Ain, and then the little hey, the silent hey at the end.
Okay, isn't it also used in chapter 54, verse 1?
Al-Qamar, yeah, Al-Qamar, it's also used in Al-Qamar to refer to the sign. And if we go back to chapter 54, that is Shaq al-Qamar. That is when the splitting of the moon, or the moon is rent asunder or split in two. These were signs. Ahmadis don't believe that, though. They don't believe in the splitting of the moon. They don't believe in any miracles from any prophet. So that have no doubt, they don't. So
what's funny there is Keekee used to always tell me that Muhammad, peace be upon him, Nauzubillah, never showed any signs, never showed any miracles. He used to tell me his only miracle was that of the Quran. Or he used to say this in passing, and I would hear it and I'd be like, huh, okay, maybe that's the Ahmadi position. Years later, I figured out that's wrong, and the splitting of the moon was one sign, and there
in
were
one
others.
of in one of the battles, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was commanded to pick up a handful of sand and launch it towards his enemies, and then that's referred to in the Quran. And this whole huge sandstorm enveloped the opposing army. So whether Qadianis want to believe in miracles or not, how this world is in existence is one huge miracle.
Right.
Are they willing to deny that?
Right.
Are they really willing to deny that? I mean, that's another. I'd love to join you on another show.
Yeah.
Extraterrestrial life or living, beyond the hemisphere of the earth. It's all denied by Qadianis, but you know what? If they just look up one of their simple little apps, there's a little thing orbiting the earth known as the International Space Station, where there's probably a half dozen people living right now.
Yeah.
وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا, between the earth and the heavens, there's this little thing orbiting the earth, and there's about 4 or 5, maybe 6 different people living there. And if you would have told Mirza Ghulam Ahmad that 100 years ago, he would have said, "Oh, that I don't believe in that."
He doesn't believe that, right? Didn't he also say in his Allah Aham, humans could never make it to the moon?
I think he said something to the effect, or maybe the better words were that no human beings could not live outside of this earth.
Outside of the earth, yeah.
Outside of the earth. So, I mean, well, that's that. Okay, let's throw a dog a bone. We know that human beings cannot live in a vacuum, but that's a human being going there. Now, for Allah to create some sort of bubble, to create some sort of realm for me to live in, or for somebody to live in, whoever He chooses of His chosen servants, let's not make God powerless there. Astaghfirullah, I will never go there. I never ever go there. Right.
So okay, and since we're talking about the moon, he blew another gasket. So I said this in the Dr. Sabeel Ahmad interview too, when they asked what led you to Islam, and I said the moon creation theory. There's like a new theory that came out, a bunch of years ago, how the moon was created, and it's an amazing miracle. Firstly, no other planet in human existence in that we've seen has a moon as big as ours. Forget it. It just doesn't happen. And the moon is our thermostat. It controls the weather, right? If it wasn't for the moon, the weather wouldn't change. It would all be the same, right? So the orbit has a little bit to do with it, but not as much. So once I realized that, and then the human voice box is unique. It cannot be copied, right? There's the octopus, the giant squid. It was things like this. There's so many. The list is endless. So Keekee doesn't understand that. He said, oh, he comes from the school where people just saw Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's face and accepted Ahmadiyya. Or he brings up the sign of Atham and says, oh, because of this sign, people accepted Ahmadiyya. So that's what he's on. He never did the homework. Well, brother, I live in the age of research and academic work.
Well,
and
we live in the age of not to bash anybody else's religion, but we live in the age of televangelists. Every Sunday morning, I try to make it a habit of mine to see what the Christian preachers out there are preaching, and they have those shows where they'll come up to you and boom, and the next thing you know, you fall backwards and they say, oh, you've been healed. That may be possible. I don't know, but it seems so fake. It's like WWE. It's like fake wrestling.
Right.
If there was as in Urdu, or I think, in Urdu we say madaris, if there was a bunch of showmen over there in his time and helped them out, helped concoct this, then that's how he fooled those people. It's just, it's a serious concoction. And I hope God that, number one, I'm glad you invited me to the show. Number two, I hope you referred to the person as Keekee. I mean, I think you're referring to Khurram Shah. Is that the individual you're referring to? Or is
I
that
can't.
somebody else?
I
Okay.
can't.
No problem. I just went off of Twitter, Khurram Shah, and I just want to make sure that, he's answered. But I hope I answered his question. Number one, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad did not write any commentary. Number two, the pages that I presented were 2 pages of 5. 5 pages reference a couple of different Rouhani Khazayim books. But I'll give Brother Khurram a big hint. One of the books that are referenced is Ijazul Ahmadi, and it's pages 129, 130, and 131, and it's Rouhani Khazayim Jild number 19. Are you going to put the material I sent you up on the link, up on Ahmadi Fact Check blog?
Yep, it's already all there.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Boy,
all they have to do is search the blog for 4361 and it all pops right up.
No, all they got to be doing is willing to gain guidance from God and then go to your website.
Right.
Or they can just fiddle and fart around and go to it. But I also included in that the Mirror of Ahmad, which is the English translation of Ijaz al-Ahmad. Now, I hope he reads all the pages, because towards Ijaz al-Ahmadi, Ijaz al-Ahmadi, Brother Bashir, I don't know if you had the chance of watching one of my other shows that I had done, done for Aka Ka Ghulam's channel, The Finality of Prophethood. Now, The Miracle of Ahmad is also the book. To me, it's a very sour taste book for any Muslim, for any Christian, or any Jew. And the reason why is, in this book, Ijazul Ahmadi, or the English, The Miracle of Ahmad, page 6 is one of the hurtful things that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said. He said that if the signs that had been shown to these people, the people of his time, if they had been shown to the people of Noah, they would not have been drowned. And then he goes on to say, if the people of Lot, Hazrat Lut salam, had been apprised of the signs, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's signs, he says the stones would not have rained down upon them. Astaghfirullah. I mean, this is in the same book. This is so egregious. I mean, I can't even imagine this. And so why Khurram or any Ahmadi would believe what's written in this book, forget about the mention of وَإِنَّهُ لَإِلْمُ لِلسَّاعَةِ فَلَا تَمْتَرُونَ, the verse that's under discussion. Forget about that. To me, when somebody interjects with such concoction, such lies, and such deceit on page after page after page, I'm not going to trust him or the person that supposedly wrote this book on any subject matter. Furthermore, on page 44 of the same book, and I've given the references, I hope you post all of them, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad writes about Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Ibnul Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, perhaps, this is on page 44 of The Miracle of Ahmad, he says, perhaps the reason why most of the interpretations of Hazrat Masih turned out to be wrong was that his initial ambitions failed to materialize. Nonetheless, this does not do any harm to his prophethood. A prophet comes with hundreds of bright signs by which he is recognized, and the truth of his claim is manifested. So if some interpretation is proved wrong, it brings no harm to the claim itself. I don't know what this guy is trying to say. And then he goes on to say on page 45, in summary, this interpretation of Hazrat Masih turned out to be wrong. The actual revelation was surely true, but he erred in understanding it. It is sad that the extent to which Hazrat Isa erred in his interpretations, the like of it is not to be found among any other prophet. Did you hear me right now? Astaghfirullah. I mean, this is in his books. Now, I think Brother Khurram is going to give me another lesson or try to school me or troll me on this. And he's going to say you need to read 15 pages forward and backwards. This is English, brother. This is English.
Right.
I don't know what else to say.
So, you can read Urdu way better than him. That's for sure.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I don't knock anybody. I praise my dad for that. My dad was really hard on my education in Urdu. He taught me daily. Urdu, reading, understanding of Urdu, I had to learn because of my dad. My dad was adamant that I learned Urdu when I lived in Pakistan. I lived there 8.5, 9 years. So alhamdulillah, I did, by Allah's blessing, learned how to read Urdu. Now, had I not learned Urdu, I would have probably been just as blind and in the Qadiani cult just as Khurram is today.
Right. And
do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's learning. He's trying. No,
inshallah, he will.
So okay. Just to be clear, you said Mirza Ghulam Ahmad never wrote a commentary of the Quran. He gave commentary on different verses. We're not saying he didn't give commentary on different verses, but he never wrote an official book that was a commentary of the Quran. And even if he still didn't write a commentary on every verse of the Quran, he wrote a few lines here and there about just the controversial verses in terms of Isa alayhi salam, and that's it. That's pretty much it. In fact, his son, the second Khalifa, in his Tafsir al-Kabir, he skipped over half the Quran. Tafsir al-Kabir,
I'll use the
yeah.
Exactly. Mirza Bashir never wrote it. Tafsir al-Saghir is complete from Surah al-Fatiha all the way through Surah al-Nas, obviously with the Ahmadi interpretations. But just with the material that you've put up online for Surah 43, verse 61, or actually in the Ahmadi Quran, Qadiani Quran, 62, the very first page that if someone opens up page 191 of Tafsir Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, 191, he translates verse 51, and then from 51 he jumps and he catapults away to verse 60. So notice that the meat and potato, he forgets to grab the context, or academically dishonestly, purposely leaves it out so no one can go back to it. It's on every. I don't have to. If brother Khurram is not going to believe me, and I'm glad to believe me, I am more than willing to spend as much time possible if it helps out another Ahmadi. Right here in the Quran, I'll show it. The verse right there. It's a Makki surah. It says it right there. You can't deny it. So it's being sent to the idol worshippers. Right, go ahead.
So let's go back to rejecting signs. We talked about the moon. Are Ahmadis, Qadianis, rejecting the signs of Isa in terms of his birth, in terms of his eventual death, and in terms of his how Allah saved him? Aren't they rejecting the Quran and the signs of the Quran?
Well, they have, number one, they have to reject the Quran and change the. Now they'll say, well, those are very harsh words, Bashir and Omar. Shame on you. We don't reject the Quran. Yes, you do. You alter the translation. You alter a translation that was set in place for over 1,400 years, or up to 1,300 years when Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was there. Now, case in point, every Ahmadi will agree with both of us on this. Ruhani Khazain, Volume 1. Brahini Ahmadiyya, book 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad at that moment was a Sunni, Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Sunni Muslim. Okay? In that book, he declares that Hazrat Isa is alive, and on his second coming, Islam will reach its pinnacle. That's a
Right.
promise of Allah. See,
Right.
what these Qadianis fail to believe, realize is the Prophet Muhammad and Hazrat Isa, or Hazrat Isa and Prophet Muhammad. This is a pair. This pair is mentioned about in the Quran, and this pair is going to bring about big changes, has brought about big changes. There's over 2 billion, almost close to 2 billion Muslims now, and inshallah, upon the return of the real Messiah, the world
Right.
converts. Now, Ahmadis will say, well, what is he eating? When is he going to come back? What's he going to do? Is he really going to be running around on some donkey or some horse, killing pigs and breaking crosses? No. Brother Bashir, let me tell you this. When the Quranic injunction came down about alcohol, all Muslims went out to the street and dumped their alcohol beverages that they had. They didn't say, how should we do this? What should we do? Can I drink here? Can I drink there? No. They just,
Right.
the injunction, the commandment came, and they went and did it. When Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam comes on his second coming, he says two things. One, he's going to say what the Holy Quran says. I was never put on the cross.
Right.
Two, I never told you guys to eat pork.
Right.
That's it. Every pig is killed. Every cross is broken by two statements. Now, the Quran verbatimly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when anybody says that Hazrat Isa was on the cross, any Muslim saying that, they are putting false words in God's words. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly condemns the act or the event of the cross and says that they were made, those people that witnessed such event, it appeared to them that happened. However, that's not what happened. You know, whether you believe in the substitution theory, whether someone believes that he was off, or there's several different interpretations out there, but you can't play with the words of Allah, especially for the sake of one man. You're playing with the words of Allah for the sake of one man, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad.
Yeah, for the Mirza family, you guys are rejecting the signs. So then he goes on to talk about Abdullah Atham, right? And funny thing is, he says Abdullah Atham was disrespecting the Prophet, peace be upon him, but we've never seen anything at all of this nature. There is nothing. Then he says Abdullah Atham went into hiding. What are you talking about? They had a parade when the 15 months were over. There's that story from Sirat al-Mahdi where Ahmadis were crying all night on the last night. But he's never read that story. He didn't see the reference from the Wafadar that I had posted. He had never seen that, right? So he says he's accusing us Muslims of rejecting this sign of Abdullah Atham and taking the side of the Christians. Well, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is embarrassing us. He's claiming to be Muslim, and he's embarrassing Muslims with this silly circus, and it was a written debate. So what did Abdullah Atham say about the Prophet? Peace be upon him. You know, that was so disrespectful that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad jumps up and says you're going to die in 15 months. And then it doesn't happen.
It doesn't.
No one knows, when did Abdullah Atham die? How many years later? Well, Anjam Atham didn't come out till 5 years later.
You know, Muslims are very respectful of the Jewish faith, of Christian faith, obviously of their own faith. They're very respectful of all the prophets. Now, how is it that a so-called Mahdi Messiah, Masih Mahdi, how is it possible that this guy forgets the Quranic injunction from Allah, the commandment of Allah? Do not insult the gods of others, or in doing such, they may insult your own God. Do you understand? So, that's what Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, he didn't bring any higher level of intelligence or higher level of understanding of the Quran. There's no way in hell he didn't bring anything near that. What he did was bring a whole bunch of ridicule to the Muslims. I mean, it's like people started asking, where did you get this guy from?
Right.
And then
Right.
if you didn't believe him, you were the son of a prostitute, and
Or something like that.
it's just.
And I'm not so sure if he was Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat, because I think his friends were all Ahl Hadith, which were like the Wahhabis. So the Wahhabis.
No, remember, Hakim Nuruddin was Ali Hadith, and Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was from. I've read it. I don't have the exact reference, but he was from Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat, whether it was an offshoot. But I know that Hakim Nuruddin was Ali Hadith, and he even wrote a letter to Hakim Nuruddin, and actually requested him to revert to his, Hanfi, style belief,
And that was only for a marriage. That was only because Nuruddin wanted to marry the daughter of Sufi Ahmad Jan, so he told him to pretend to be Hanafi. But check this out. Check this out. In Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's childhood, one of his teachers was Ahl Hadith, right? His nikah in 1884 was read by the founder of the Ahl Hadith. Not just, brother, when the founder of the Ahl Hadith reads your nikah in Delhi, that is a connection. Like I couldn't get the Khalifa to come to my nikah to read my nikah, or anyone. So and remember, Maulvi Abdul Karim was Ahl Hadith. The majority of people who became Ahmadis were Ahl Hadith, and these people were anti-Hanafi, because Hanafi is a school of thought. The Ahl Hadith were destroying all that and saying, let's revise everything. So anyhow, going back to the Atham thing. So check this out. When Atham died, and there were many attempts on his life too. It's hilarious, right? So when Atham died, all of a sudden Lekram dies on an Ahmadis, in front of an Ahmadi, right? How fishy is that? Okay, then a month later, some guy named Abdul Hamid, who was the nephew of Maulvi Burhanuddin. Maulvi Burhanuddin was one of the top 10 Maulvis of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad at Qadian. He died the same time as Maulvi Abdul Karim. But this guy is an Ahmadi. He gets sent to kill Dr. Clark. So Keekee says, oh, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad didn't say to go kill people. He said, let God. No, there's something going on here. Who was the Ahmadi that went to go kill Dr. Clark? Explain that. Why did Lekram die in front of an Ahmadi? So Keekee, bless his heart, he doesn't know any of these things because he hasn't researched them. But anyhow, that's the topic on Atham and signs. Moving on to Ik Galti Ka Izala. So I mentioned, and they didn't have a response for this because they know. Galti does not mean misconception. And Izala does not mean removed. It's one error's
correction of one errors.
Right. It's Ik Galti, which is one error. Izala means summary. The summary of one error, or the summation of one error, would be the proper translation. But the Qadianis, they translate it as misconception removed. So I don't even understand the point he's making, because I'm telling them your people purposely mistranslated it. Then he says, no, but it's not Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's Galti. It's the Galti of his followers, right? And that's where he makes a mistake.
But do you see hold that thought right there, Brother Bashir? Do you see the tactics? This is the tactic. This is the Ahmadi. I didn't say it. He said it. She said it. Mirza Tahir Ahmad said it. We don't own Mirza Tahir Ahmad.
Yeah.
For God's sake, these guys will disown Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Oh, no. He didn't mean to say that. He meant to say this. They do that over and over and over again in book after book after book on subject after subject. You know, the whole ahadith about the advent of, or the second coming of Christ, Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, in Damascus. You know, on the video on the Qadiani YouTube channel, Rahe Huda, you know, they have the three murabbis sitting there, 3 or 4 murabbis trying to explain that. And the most amazing thing is most Ahmadis go, wow, on that video. I mean, I challenge any Ahmadi to go bring that video, put it live, and narrate it, and they will see for themselves. And they all say, yeah, it could mean this, it could mean that, it could mean this, it could mean that. You know, so Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was supposedly the man that was given 40,000 Arabic words in one night.
In 1 minute. In a millisecond.
Okay. Well, and he was the mujaddid of his time. How is it that the Quranic translations within the Ahmadi Jamaat differ from amongst themselves? Whether I look at Mir Muhammad Ishaq's translation, whether I look at Mirza Tahir Ahmad's translations, whether I look at Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud, whether I look at Hakim Nuruddin's, whether I look at Malik Ghulam Farid, whether I look at Maulvi Sher Ali, all of these Qurans vary in translations. I mean, right, in less than 100 years. So anyways, keep your thought. Sorry.
Yeah. So here's the funny thing about Ik Galti Ka Azala. I read the English edition that came out 2006, and I went to my local masjid, and this is what I was asking about. This was the first question I asked at the Ahmadiyya Masjid. So what Keekee doesn't understand is it is Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's Galti, because Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is announcing his prophethood in this book, and he didn't understand it for 20 years, for 21 years, and he's blaming his followers. That's yes, the irony here. Is, you know, the old Punjabi man from the village doesn't admit to his mistakes. You know, so he's saying he's fixing an error, but in reality, it's his own error. And see, Keekee doesn't know. This is what the Lahori Ahmadis argue. They said, how could Mirza Ghulam Ahmad be fixing his own error when in the book he starts off with saying it's not his error, it's someone else's error. And so that's the question that I asked, and Keekee blew a gasket. The local Murabbi who's in LA right now in Chino, Urshad Mali, called me a non-MD. He made me sign the bath again just because I read it, Galti Ka Azala, and I was like, what is going on here? You know, and
wait a minute. Say that again. I mean, they had you redo the bath?
Yes. He tells me in Punjabi, tu MD nahi. I was like, what? I was like, what?
So at that time, didn't you ask him, fir main ki aega?
Yeah, I said, nahi, main to paida hoya apna MD. Unhe kya nahi? वो कहना नहीं 2003 में खलीफा फोत हो गया था, तुम इस मुल्क में नहीं थे, सारों को बात एक और दफा करनी पड़ी, तूने नहीं की थी।
अच्छा तूने मिर्जा मसरूर दे हाथ ते उते बात नहीं की थी सीगा. That's why.
Yeah.
Now remember, like Mirza Masroor says, Jamaat harkat mein aa gayi. So you got to do that.
Right. So at the time, I was fighting in the Iraq War, fixing airplanes. I wasn't even in the country. How could I have re-upped my bath, right? So I asked them, I said, now you remember? I've been playing football coming to Ramadan for 2-3 years. Now you remember that I technically, and that he didn't have anything to say. So I asked him, did Mirza Ghulam Ahmad change his position on prophethood in 1901? He said he didn't remember. His son is like, no, he claimed prophethood at the beginning. Keekee is like, nope, he claimed prophethood at the beginning. Everyone at this table says, nope, he claimed prophethood when he claimed to be the Messiah. And I said, you know what? The Lahoris are right. None of y'all know anything, you know, and I shouldn't trust you because they just proved it to me. Because I just
You know
came
that
here.
the little show I had the other day, and I think you had asked me we would probably dive into that as well. But just as ek galti ka izala, no Ahmadi is able to answer, hey, is he or was he not a prophet? Was he the Masih Maud? Was he a prophet? Was he a Masih? In Azala Oham, part 1, page 197 of Ruhani Khazai, volume 3. I had given the reference, and the reason why it's not to be angry towards anyone, or not to be spiteful and try to sling mud towards anyone. I was trying in that video to give information to Ahmadis, non-Urdu speaking Ahmadis, and that's why I did that video. But page 197, my God, 15 years ago, when I stumbled upon pages like that, and I think it's really important. I'm going to read the Urdu for you,
Sure.
because it's just so dangerous. Our mother and our fathers warned us when we were little, said, hey, be careful of strangers. Don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to somebody who's a kidnapper. And this is what Mirza Ghulam Ahmad has done. He's kidnapped them. He's hijacked them, from them, their religion. Look what he says on page 197, volume 3, Azalai Oham, Hissa Awal, Azalai Oham, part 1, page 197. He says, मालूम होगा, it's down towards the middle of the page, मालूम होगा कि दर हकीकत इतनी बड़ी मुखालिफत नहीं है जिस पर इतना शोर मचाया गया. मैंने सिर्फ मसीह होने का दावा किया. So he says, I don't know why these guys are bickering and making so much noise about what I've been saying. All I have claimed is to be the Masil Messiah. Masil translates as reflection, shadow, Messiah. So he's saying, I've only made claim of being a shadow or a reflective Messiah, a mirror image to the Messiah, so to speak. Then he goes on to say, और मेरा ये भी दावा नहीं कि सिर्फ मसील होने का, ये भी दावा नहीं कि सिर्फ मसील होना मेरे पर ही खत्म हो गया. So he says, I don't believe that, I don't just believe that I'm the Masil and it's finished with me. He further on goes on to say, बल्कि मेरे नजदीक मुमकिन है कि आइंदा ज़मानों में मेरे जैसे और 10,000 भी मसीह आ जाएं. He says, just like me, he goes, I believe that, 10,000 more reflected shadow messiahs may come. But then he goes on to say, in future time, that 10,000 more messiahs may come. And then he goes on to say in Urdu, is zamana, here's the salesmanship. Here's where he's going to to the people. इस ज़माना के लिए मैं मसील हूँ और दूसरे की इंतजार बेसूद है. So he says, I am the Masil, the reflective Messiah of the time. Waiting for anybody else is without merit. It's not worthy. He goes on to further say, now I didn't share this in my video the other day. It was on screen. It was on the references that I had provided. Then he goes on to say, और ये भी जाहिर रहे कि ये कुछ मेरा ही ख्याल नहीं कि मसीह बहुत हो सकते हैं, बल्कि अहादीस नबविया का भी यही मंशा पाया जाता है, क्योंकि हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम फरमाते हैं कि दुनिया के आखिर तक करीब 30 के दज्जाल पैदा होंगे. अब जाहिर है कि जब 30 दज्जाल का आना जरूरी है, तो बेहुक्म लिकुल्ल दज्जाल ईसा 30 मसीह भी आने चाहिए. So he goes on to deceitfully refer to the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that towards the end of the time there would be 30 imposters, 30 fabricators, 30 liars within his ummah. So Mirza Ghulam Ahmad takes that ahadith, concocts his own version, and says, hey, you know what? Rasulullah said that there's going to be 30 Dajjals coming. So in light of the 30 Dajjals coming, there have to be 30 Messiahs. First he says there's going to be 10,000. Then he says there's going to be 30. Let's forget about the 10,000. My question in that last video, Brother Bashir, was, show me the remaining 29.
Right.
Was there 28 before Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and there's only one coming after? I mean, he should know all of this. He should know all this. And you know what? Ahmadis can't deny this. They cannot deny that. They know that their false Messiah, their Antichrist. I call him the Antichrist. I'm sorry. My prerogative, my opinion of the man, of his lies and deceits. He's the Antichrist. He lied and he said that he was Khatamul Khulafa, that he is the last. Okay? He stole, he hijacked the word Khatam from Rasulullah, Khatamun Nabiyyin, and he made himself Khatamul Khulafa. He said it in several books. He says, just like Jesus was the last prophet for the Israelites, he says, I'm the last prophet for the Muslims.
Yeah, I believe it's Kishtiyanu for that. Here, let me pull that up, because I actually just wrote an essay on Hatam Hulafa. I was shocked, right? But he said the same thing about being the Messiah. He says, "Oh, I'm the only one." No, there could be many, and then he says, "Well, I'm the only one."
Yeah.
You know, so he said the same thing about his prophethood. He said, "Oh, there could be many." And then he says, "No, I'm the only one." So it's from Ijazi Ahmadi and Kishtiyanu, where he and Brahini Ahmadi of Volume 5, where he calls himself Khatamul Khulafa, and that is sick. And it's also mentioned in 1921 in Enes Sadakat, which is the truth about the split. So okay, moving on here. So look, Keekee has another. They've misled a young boy by the name of Damon Stengel. He's barely 21 years old. He's been trolling me since he was a teenager, brother. Since he was 17, this guy's been posting fake pics about me, edited pics about me. He's absolutely nuts. They won't help this kid out. Instead, they're egging him on. He says, he quotes a verse of the Quran, the famous verse where it says, if people are being ignorant, just respond to them with peace, right? How come Mirza Ghulam Ahmad didn't do that with Abdullah Atham? If that's the case, why did Mirza Ghulam Ahmad do these Mobila challenges, Damon? If this is what the Quran says, right? And check this out, Nicholas Evans just did a podcast where he said he couldn't find anyone in the history of Islam who did Mobilas. He's like, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was the first one that we ever found that actually did these.
You know what? If you were an opponent of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and a staunch opponent, number one, your first warning was, I think he'd sent Tilka Asharatun, he pasted 10 lanats at the end of the subject matter that he wrote against you. So if you were an opponent of a small degree, or if it was your first time, cutting his path, he sent you 10 lanats.
Right.
If you were a big opponent, and you disagreed with him, and he was trying to go back and forth with you, then he issued you 1,000.
Right.
He literally wrote them 1,000 times.
Well,
and
he
if
didn't
you were
his assistant, probably it was Mufti Muhammad Sadiq, who he was like, "Hey, yard boy, I need you to write this real quick."
I'm telling you, the Ahmadi writers would think today's technology would be a massive miracle. Can you imagine? That book wouldn't have had 1,000. I think it would have had over 1 crore lanat in it. It would have been from cover to cover 1 crore. Now, speaking of opponents, if you were even a bigger opponent and you deserved more than just the curse of God, then he prayed and wished for your death. So that's
right. Damon and Keekee go on to say the reason that Muslims are being called terrorists, the reason Muslims are being killed, the reason Muslims are getting beat up, the reason Muslims are going through all this is because we rejected Mirza Ghulam Ahmad.
You know what? Unfortunately, there is a lack of unity within the Muslim Ummah. It comes because of the language divide, but there is no lack of unity when it comes to prayer time or anything like that. Everyone is driven, unfortunately, by this materialistic world. Let's be honest, Brother Bashir. The Qadiani cult is driven by material matters. Everyone, for all that matter, in this world, they say they trust in Allah. Um, I think they trust in the almighty dollar, rupee, real, or whatever, the dinar or whatever it is. They trust in that. So I think that's one thing that the Ummah needs to learn, is to re-gear their trust in Allah, their belief, their taqwa of Allah, and unite. So it's just not within Ahmadis. That's
Right.
people
Christians
in general.
united.
People in
Germans
general, yeah.
united. And here's the thing: Muslims were divided almost instantly after the Prophet, peace be upon him, died. What is he even talking about? The Shia Sunni split, and then the Mughal Empire and the Ottoman Empire were not together at all. Right, so
Correct.
that's two parallel Muslim governments, and let's not forget Malaysia and Brunei. They were doing their own thing. In Africa, in Timbuktu, they were doing their own thing. In North Africa, they were doing their own thing. In Spain, they were doing their own thing. The Muslims in Indonesia were doing their own thing. I was just reading about how the Muslims in Indonesia and the island of Madagascar had a huge connection, right, and etc. So he's way off with that. Then he says a Damon who's a child. He's a child. They're leading him astray. He said that Shah Waliullah claimed that that Islam had ascended to the Pleiades. Never heard of this reference. I don't know where he's getting that from. Let me see what else, brother, and we'll slowly wrap up.
Yeah, Islam going up to the Pleiades and Persian bringing it back down. Number one, in the centuries, in the 1300 centuries before Ghulam Ahmad, and now 1442 centuries before our time, Islam has never left this earth in its entirety. Islam has always been intact somewhere, somehow. That's a guarantee from Allah. It was a promise to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, no one's going to eradicate Islam from this world. That was a promise to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also promised that no outside force would be able to eradicate, or defeat and conquer all the Muslims. Somewhere in the world there would be Muslims in charge, understanding Islam, not the Qadianis, please. You know what? God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in chapter 6, verse 159, you know what? I might as well read it for Brother Khurram Shah right now, because he might say that I'm lying.
Or he might say you don't know how to read the Quran or something.
Well,
like
I don't claim to be an Arabic scholar. I don't claim to be an English scholar, or for that matter, Urdu scholar. But I learned Arabic just like any Pakistani kid would at that time, back in the early 80s. I have tried to improve on my Arabic and Urdu over the years. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-An'am, chapter 6, verse 159 of the Muslim Quran, 160 of the Ahmadi Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيئا لست منهم في شيء إنما أمرهم إلى الله ثم ينبئوهم بما كانوا يفعلون. Okay, Keep in mind, Brother Bashir, I think it was Tariq al-Qulub or Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, clearly in one of his books, and I think it's Tariq al-Qulub or Kitab al-Buriyya, in one of those two books, he clearly says that I'm establishing the firqa of Ahmadiyat. He called his version of religion Ahmadiyat, okay?
Right.
Firqa, whatever, madhab. He says it is firqa Ahmadiyat. And what is God saying in the Ahmadi Quran? Again, I'm not going to go to any other source. It says, as for those who split up their religion and became divided in sects, thou hast no concern. So Allah is addressing the Holy Prophet, and he's saying, thou hast no concern at all with them. Surely their affair is with Allah, then shall he inform them of what they used to do. So
Right.
Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is clearly being told, do not associate with those that break up. You know, the Quran's very clear, man. Very, very clear. I don't know if your brother Khurram has read chapter 9, verses 107, 108. My God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so clear. 107 and 108. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Again. Oh, my Lord. Allah says, and among the hypocrites are those who have built. Listen to these words from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And among the hypocrites are those who have built a mosque in order to injure Islam and help disbelief and to cause a division among the believers and to prepare an ambush for him who warred against Allah and his messenger before this, and they will surely swear we meant nothing but good, but Allah bears witness that they are certainly liars.
Right.
This is in the time, Brother Bashir, this is in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hypocrites were establishing mosques back then. So the Qadiani cult is nothing new. The only thing new about their version is Mega Man himself, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad himself. You know, that was new because very far few. And why do I consider him the Antichrist? He's the only one that's claimed that he is the second coming of Christ for Christians. He's the Messiah of the Jews. He's the Messiah of the Muslims. He's Christian. You know, he's, the second coming of possibly Guru Nanak.
Right.
And then the fact is, he says that Jesus was alive and then he killed him. I think it would be a little too far-fetched for me to go this route on this video. I haven't done the research, but I'm going to go out there, out on a limb. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, Dajjal, when Dajjal comes, he's going to kill someone, cut him in two. I think the ahadith is something to the effect that he's going to cut him in two, and then he's going to piece them back together and bring them back to life. So what did Mirza Ghulam Ahmad do? He says he was alive, Hazrat Isa was alive, and that he was coming back, but then he killed him, not once, twice, but 3 times.
Yeah.
And then he re-resurrected himself by claiming in Kashtinu of that whole concoction of how he became Hazrat Maryam alayhi salam, and then that he was pregnant for 10 months. What a long, far-fetched pregnancy. And then he became Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. So, I'm just going metaphorically, he said somebody was alive and then he kills him and then he concocts and becomes that person.
I think you're right, brother. If anyone is the Dajjal, it's got to be him. So, very, very true indeed. Indeed.
Furthermore, I haven't found to prove there's nothing in the my message now. I'm going to look straight into the camera. My message is to Brother Khurram. Brother Khurram, any other Ahmadis listening to me right now, your system of khulafa, your nizam jamaat, nor any of the past khulafa or Mirza Ghulam Ahmad himself, they have nothing to better Islam with, and They have nothing to better the world with. Nothing. No answer for today's problems. They didn't have any answers for the problems back then. So please, pull your head out of the sand, read the books for what they are, get all the books, okay? Up to and including, you know what? Here, I know Urdu, but look at this.
Yeah.
Urdu English Dictionary, Arabic English Dictionary.
Yeah.
Use Google, for God's sake. You can't hide behind it now. Save
Right.
your own iman. If you read the Quran, you've read the chapter where every pregnant woman will deliver what she is carrying at that time. No father will be able to protect their son. No son will be able to protect their father or mother or child. Don't wait for the last hour to come upon you. You're not
Right.
going to, the answer, hey, I was just following my mother and father, that ain't working.
Right. Right. And in fact, Muhammad, peace be upon him, he rebelled against his fathers and his uncles and everyone. So Islam should teach you, if your fathers are in manifest error, if your uncles are in manifest error, you have the right to stand up and say what you guys are doing is wrong. So going back to the point about sects, in the Mughal Empire, there were no sects. It was Hanafi fiqh, and they encouraged people to be Sufis, right? They didn't have this problem. In the Ottoman Empire, it's Hanafi fiqh. And, you know, there were some Shias running around, but there were no official sects, right? In Africa, a lot of the Muslims are Maliki, right? In Indonesia, I think they're Shafi. So the sects didn't exist. It was a fiqh that was used but by Sunni Muslims. The sects happened when capitalism, colonialism, free markets came in, freedom of religion happened, and they encouraged everyone to create their own sect.
Majority of them have come about within the last 150 to 200 years.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's when the colonists showed up, and they wanted Muslims to make their own sect. They created, so then we get into Wahhabism, and that's going down a different route. But anyhow, that's the story on the sects. It's capitalism, free marketism, and Keekee was asked by Kashif Shahzada, why did Mirza Ghulam Ahmad create a sect, and he didn't know. He didn't know that in 1900 on the census, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad told Ahmadis to write to either put an X in the box or put a thumbprint on Ahmadi, not Muslim. So all the Muslims were counted differently, and Ahmadis were counted separately and differently, right? So okay. And one final point, it's a bit off topic. It's about the 40,000 roots. So the Al-Hakam has responded to me. I'm honored. The Al-Hakam Online has ran 2 essays after I ran my essays on Mirza Ghulam Ahmad learning 40,000 roots in one night. No one ever said that during his lifetime, that he learned 40,000 roots in one night. They said he miraculously learned it. After Mirza Ghulam Ahmad died, his son said that he didn't just learn it in one night. He learned it in a millisecond. As soon as Nuruddin moved in, he went to go write it in Arabic, and he came back in a minute, and it was already written. And he, you know, so that's how the story goes. So the positive out of that is these guys are watching the blog. These guys are watching the work that we come up with, and that wasn't even my original work. Hani Tahir brought all that up. I'm just a researcher, brother. I can go put all the information together and put it in one essay. So, so with that being said, do you have anything else, brother? And we'll call it.
No, I know we touched on a lot of different subject matters in this show. Once again, Brother Bashir, thank you for having me on your show. But again, I applaud your efforts, your websites, the material that you're disseminating out there. It's factual. Nobody can deny it. If they want to, prop up some arguments, hey, bring them on down. The water is fine. That's what I'm here for. For any of my current Ahmadi brothers, sisters, my friends, family members, even Ahmadi members that are out there, If you have Brother Bashir's number, reach out to him. If you would like to talk to me, if you're sincere in your search for the truth of Islam, then reach out. Talk to me on any subject matter with what Mirza Ghulam Ahmad has written about. Believe me, if I don't know of it, then you and I are both going to learn of it. And Brother Khurram, please don't be too judgmental, bro. I shared nothing but references from the Ahmadi material. Tell me that I'm 100% wrong, that there's no contradictions in your Khulafa and your Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Come back to me. But be honest with yourself, bro. Don't lie to your audience, man. Come on. But again, thank you, Brother Bashir. It's been a pleasure being on your show. With that, it is definitely getting late. The show's been going on for about an hour and 15 minutes. Add some words to it. Let me know how you feel.
Yeah, that's all that I have. Normally, I end my show with some Arabic recitation, some beautiful Arabic recitation from Jennifer Grout, who has an amazing voice, and it's much better than the tajweed from any Ahmadi. So, so we'll hear that for the last 10 seconds, and then don't leave. I'll talk to you backstage. But ladies and gentlemen, there it is, and enjoy some beautiful Quran on our way out. So here we go.
وكتبه